Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with a look at one of the biggest stories going around the entertainment industry right now, and yet a story that it seems like not a lot of people actually know the details of. And it surrounds one of the leading Oscar contenders this year, The Brutalist, which is a 3.5-hour epic about a Hungarian architect who finds a very dark version of the American dream. This is the time of what should be celebration around the film and its nominations, but if you Google The Brutalist, or if you listen to much of the online discourse around it, you'll mostly hear about a controversy that stemmed from the use of artificial intelligence, or AI, in its production. And that's the focus of this video, to dig into what actually started this controversy and to dig into some of the misconceptions around it and give you my thoughts as well. So let's begin with the article that started this whole ball rolling, which was published on January 11th in an outlet called Red Shark News, a production and technology website that is not accustomed to making headlines. The article is an interview with the film's editor, David Jonkso, and the controversial part came near the end when he talked about some of the use of AI in the production process of the film. And watching this happen over the last couple of weeks has been like watching a game of telephone conducted on the internet in real time. Because every time I've seen this story repeated back to me, it gets further and further away from what the truth actually is if you dig into it. So I want to start with the actual interview itself. I'm going to present here the text of the article and what the editor of the film actually said. The article says, quote, "Much of the film's dialogue is in Hungarian. The filmmakers went to great lengths to make it as accurate to a native speaker as possible. This included judicious use of AI from the Ukrainian specialist Respeecher. David Jankso explains, I am a native Hungarian and I know that it is one of the most difficult languages to learn to pronounce. Even with Adrian's Hungarian background," that would be Adrian Brody, Brody's mother is a Hungarian refugee who immigrated to the US in 1956, "it's not that simple. It's an extremely unique language. We coached Brody and Felicity Jones and they did a fabulous job, but we also wanted to perfect it so that not even locals will spot any difference. Tweaks were needed to enhance specific letters of their vocal sounds. If you're coming from the Anglo-Saxon world, certain sounds can be particularly hard to grasp. We first tried to ADR these harder elements with the actors, then we tried to ADR them completely with other actors, but that just didn't work. So we looked for other options of how to enhance it. Brody and Jones were fully on board with the process, guided by Respeecher, which started with recording their voices to drive the AI Hungarian delivery. Jankso also fed his voice into the AI model to finesse the tricky dialect. Jankso said, quote, "Most of their Hungarian dialogue has a part of me talking in there. We were very careful about keeping their performances. It's mainly just about replacing letters here and there. You can do this in Pro Tools yourself, but we had so much dialogue in Hungarian that we really needed to speed up the process, otherwise we'd still be in post." So let's pause right here. I've seen multiple people saying in my comment section and elsewhere that Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones should be disqualified for awards consideration because AI was used to generate their voice or they didn't actually speak Hungarian in the film. And that's just not true. That's not what the article claims, and that's not what anybody else has factually claimed about this case. What the AI technology did was to clean up small perfections in their accents to make them sound more believable. It's not like somebody put Adrian Brody's voice in a computer and typed, "make him speak Hungarian," and then it spit out something that they conned the audience into thinking was him actually speaking a foreign language. He did speak that language. This was just a series of tweaks. In addition, Jankso says that these are changes that could have been made manually using Pro Tools, which is an Avid audio editing software, if they had had enough time in post-production to do it, but because they didn't have that long on the schedule, they decided to go in and use AI to help make those tweaks. So this is stuff that could have been done manually, but which was done with the assistance of a computer. Now, I'm lucky enough to actually have access to The Brutalist through a viewing platform for critics to watch films for awards consideration. So I wanted to go in and actually see how much dialogue we're talking about. How much of The Brutalist's entire runtime potentially involved the use of artificial intelligence for these Hungarian language sections. The Brutalist has a runtime of 3 hours and 34 minutes, including the film's 15-minute intermission. Using a stopwatch, I clocked how long Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones's characters spoke Hungarian, and the total came out to about 7 minutes. Most of it in voiceover, reading letters that they write to each other, which I'm sure is where the work was done. Even if you completely disagree with the use of AI to modify or perfect their Hungarian accents, I think it's a pretty difficult case to make that their entire performance should be disqualified for about 7 minutes out of a runtime of 3 hours and 15 minutes. And I think one of the key points here is that a lot of the people out there who are outraged online about this likely haven't even seen The Brutalist, because given its release structure, it's not exactly an easy movie to have access to unless you are lucky enough to be a critic like myself, or you live in a major city where The Brutalist is playing. It's now rolling out to more and more markets, especially this past weekend. But still, I find it hard to believe that a lot of people went to see the movie first to fact check this stuff before going online and spouting what I think is largely misinformation about this whole thing. Jenks went on to speak about another use of AI in the film that's also generated controversy, and I'm going to go back to the article here. It says, Gen AI is also used right at the end of the film in a sequence at the Venice Biennale to conjure a series of architectural drawings and finished buildings in the style of the fictional architect. The overall effect is so impressive you might find yourself headed to Wikipedia to double check that Laszlo Toth existed. Jungso said, quote, "It is controversial in the industry to talk about AI, but it shouldn't be. We should be having a very open discussion about what tools AI can provide us with. There's nothing in the film using AI that hasn't been done before. It just makes the process a lot faster. We use AI to create these tiny little details that we didn't have the money or the time to shoot," end quote. Again, I have seen multiple people claim online that AI was used to generate all of the buildings that you see in The Brutalist, and thus the movie and the production designer's work should be tossed out because it's all basically fraudulent. That is not the case. When you look at the facts, AI was used to generate the basis for some drawings that were used at the finale of the film, drawings which we'll learn later actually weren't even the finished product. The interesting thing here is that this information specifically about the AI use in the finale of the film has been out in the public for about 2 years, because in an interview with Filmmaker Magazine in December 2022 about the emerging use of AI in film, production designer Judy Becker openly talked about how she and her team had used AI to assist them in their work. The article says, quote, "For a sequence showing a retrospective of his work, Becker says architecture consultant Griffin Frazen used Midjourney, quote, to create 3 Brutalist buildings quite quickly, end quote, by using references to key figures in the movement along with other architectural terms." Becker said, quote, "Now I will have these digital prints redrawn by an illustrator to create mythical buildings." So instead of AI being used to generate all of the buildings in the movie, as some people online would have you believe, a consultant was used to generate some AI images, which are then handed off to the production design team. Illustrators then generated their own versions of those AI images to be used as essentially props in a scene at the end of the movie. Again, not exactly make me a building typed into a computer to replace the work of production designers and the art department. Now, when it comes to art and graphics, I understand that there is more skepticism here, because it does seem that there was some generative element used even under some very strict, tight guidelines. So again, I went back to the movie itself to see just how prominent these images were and just how much screen time they're featured for. In the finale of the film, there are several illustrations that are used as prop displays that could be the images in question. There's no way of knowing which ones are and which ones aren't. But the combined screen time of all those images, less than a minute. Again, even if you don't agree with the art department using AI for this purpose, it would be hard for you to make the case to me that the entire production design team or the movie itself should be disqualified for pieces of work that appear on screen as props for less than a minute. Following the publication of the interview and resulting controversy, Brady Corbet responded to the uproar saying, quote, "Adrian and Felicity's performances are completely their own. They worked for months with dialect coach Tanera Marshall to perfect their accents. Innovative re-speecher technology was used in Hungarian language dialogue editing only, specifically to refine certain vowels and letters for accuracy. No English language was changed. This was a manual process done by our sound team and re-speecher in post-production. The aim was to preserve the authenticity of Adrian and Felicity's performances in another language, not to replace or alter them, and done with the utmost respect for the craft. Judy Becker and her team did not use AI to create or render any of the buildings. All images were hand-drawn by artists." Now, this does seem to stretch Becker's comments just a little bit, because while the images themselves were done by illustrators, they were based off of images that were generated by AI. But I think that the main thing to focus on here is that at no point did this work supplant human involvement. It didn't take anyone's jobs. It did not bypass the involvement of actors. This is what so many people were concerned about with artificial intelligence, especially during the writers and actors strike back in 2023. Some have even argued that the use of this technology helped to create jobs because nobody was taken off of the movie and the AI technicians were brought in to work alongside the teams that were already hired to work on the film. Respeecher, by the way, is a Ukrainian company based in Ukraine, and so it's nice to know that they're able to do some business given everything that's been going on in that country for the last few years. Now, if your concern is that the use of AI made the performances inauthentic because the actors' accents were altered, I would counter what is more preferable, that you release a film where actors speak a different language in a flawed accent, because we've seen backlash against that too, specifically with Emilia Perez and Selena Gomez in particular, whose Spanish skills have been the subject of derision by many. I personally don't think that the use of AI altered the authenticity or the legitimacy of either performance in any way, not only because they didn't speak in Hungarian for the vast majority of the film, but also because their work in English, which according to Brady Corbet was completely unaltered, is really good. If you haven't seen the movie and you're commenting on this, first of all, go see the movie, because Felicity Jones and Adrian Brody put in fantastic, heart-wrenching, incredibly nuanced performances that I think absolutely should be recognized as some of the best of the year. Another important thing to note is that you very rarely see the raw, unaltered performance of an actor. It's almost always modified in some way in post-production. In fact, that's what the process of editing a movie is. You are manipulating the version of the performance that you see from an actor. In the best cases, unless you have a really bad movie, you don't see the take where the actor flubbed a line. You don't see the take where maybe the accent work was a little bit shaky or the performance just wasn't quite as strong as it could be. And with the advent of digital technology, the tools that directors have in post-production has grown exponentially. I think that the average moviegoer would actually be pretty shocked at the amount of digital manipulation that is done to every single film that is released now. I can guarantee you that The Brutalist is not the first movie that has used AI in some form to help modify or enhance the performances of its actors. In fact, I know it's not, because it's been documented that other recent projects have as well. Emilia Perez used Respeecher, the same technology that was used in The Brutalist, to help broaden Carla Sofia Gascon's vocal range when singing to match Jacques Audiard's vision, according to an interview that was done with the film's mixer Cyril Holtz in Cannes months ago, something that I didn't see anybody comment on until The Brutalist news broke. Respeecher was also used to help generate the voices of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader in The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi, respectively, with the approval of Mark Hamill and James Earl Jones before his passing, again, to very little controversy. And according to an article by Dominic Lees, a professor who specializes in the use of AI and deepfakes, the technology was also used in this year's Better Man as well. The fact of the matter is that filmmaking is a collaborative endeavor, and technology more and more is a key part of that collaboration. Now, I don't agree when artificial intelligence is used to completely cut an actor out of the picture or to replace the work that human beings can do on a film. I think that's destructive to the industry, and I think that there are ethical guidelines as well. For example, in Morgan Neville's documentary Roadrunner, a film about Anthony Bourdain, AI was used to make Bourdain speak words he never spoke prior to his death, with no disclosure to the audience that what they were hearing was completely fabricated, and according to Bourdain's widow, without her authorization as well. The fact that this took place in a documentary made it even worse, and the film, I think, rightfully received backlash for it. But that's not what happened with The Brutalist. Now, had Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones completely been left out of this process, or if their entire performance had been in Hungarian and AI was used to modify the whole thing, then I could see more of a case here. What we're talking about here are relatively small changes that were made to just a few minutes in a 3-hour and 15+ minute long movie. It seems that when anyone mentions artificial intelligence right now, there is a knee-jerk reaction to condemn it because of its destructive power. And I agree. There have to be hard limits set in place to limit the destructive potential of AI, but I think it also has the potential to be used as a tool to help a filmmaker achieve his or her vision, in the same way that digital color grading has become a tool to help filmmakers and cinematographers achieve their vision. Digital color grading has become the standard in Hollywood right now. Just about every movie you see has had the look tweaked by a technician, a human technician, and signed off on by humans, the director and or the cinematographer, but it doesn't reflect the reality of what was shot on the day. Now, should any movie that uses digital color grading be disqualified from an award for, say, best cinematography? No, I don't think so, because underlying all of it is the raw talent of the artist who captured the image. What you're doing is enhancing that image and bringing that look more in line with the way that the cinematographer and director want the final product to feel like. And I think that use of digital color grading and the use of AI in this specific instance is pretty much the same thing. It doesn't fundamentally alter the basis of what the performance or what the look of the film is. I think the main point to be made here is this: the use of AI in filmmaking is not binary. It's not all cases are good or all cases are bad. There are guardrails that have to be set up. There are things that should definitely be disallowed, and many unions and people behind the scenes have been pushing to set what those boundaries are. But I think that when wielded properly, it can be used to enhance the filmmaking experience without jeopardizing the work of humans or the input of creatives. And that's really where I think the line should be drawn. A lot of people just want to use the slippery slope fallacy and say that if you use AI in any case, it will inevitably lead to AI being used in every case, which will lead to the complete destruction of the film business. I think that is a very doom and gloom scenario that completely rules out the fact that there are people that are out there that are trying to place guardrails on how AI should and shouldn't be used. It is a nuanced discussion to have, and it's a discussion that needs to be had, but nuanced discussions are very difficult to have, especially in the public arena where the whole thing can be distorted, and then those distortions are repeated as fact, and then those distortions of distortions are repeated as fact, and you have to dig down and find out what the truth of it actually is. My thoughts are largely shared by the author of the original article, the one that started this firestorm, Adrian Pennington. Following the story spread on social media and elsewhere, he wrote, quote, "I knew during the interview with David Jansko that the use of AI was headline news. However, I deliberately placed this aspect of the making of much further into my story, not to bury it, but to give some shield to the fact that while AI was used, it was used subtly and nuanced and in micro amounts with all rights pertaining to actors, for example, intact. I did not want an AI headline to detract from what is an incredible piece of filmmaking. Social media users jumping to condemn something that they have not seen, strikes me that most people criticizing use of AI here have not seen the film, is sadly not a surprise, but they are in no position to comment, and their comments are misleading or plain lies. For example, the use of AI to help generate some architectural drawings appears on screen for maybe 4 seconds at end of the film, not as some on social media are claiming that every image of a building they see in the film is AI generated. Perhaps if Hollywood studios had backed the ambitious vision of director Brady Corbet, he would not have had to make it on a shoestring $10 million budget, necessitating some innovative use of AI as a tool to save time and money. If you want to see original, thought-provoking film, then you should be backing filmmakers like Corbet. But what do you think? Given the facts of the situation, do you still think that the use of AI in The Brutalist was objectionable? Or do you think that this is, for lack of a better word, a proper way to use this technology? You know where I stand, but I want to know what you think. Let me know down in the comments below, and be sure to stay tuned right here for more info about award season, as well as other movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Thanks for watching this video. Everyone, please be nice to each other in the comments. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.